The story begins in a hospital where there is a patient being treated by 3 doctors. One of the doctors notices that the patient's heart rate has dropped below the average because of an infection from a mental fragment they extracted earlier. They conclude that if they delay the process any further, the patient may go into cardiac arrest. They try performing CPR, but to no use. The patient's heartbeat stops and the doctors are saddened. The doctor remembers how the patient's mother had pleaded with them to save her only son and blamed her for his situation. They note the time and cause of death. In the meantime, the mother is praying for her son's life. Suddenly another doctor enters the OT and informs everyone that the surgery is not over and they should get back to their positions. He starts asking them to prepare the patient logs and prepare for blood transfusion. He then claims that he can still be saved. One of the doctors is shocked and asks what is the use of operating on a dead patient, and the other doctor explains to him about the medical techniques of the doctor who just entered and explains how he can even save the dead. The patient is saved and everyone celebrates. We are then shown our MC how he cannot take any rest as he was again busy with an operation for the entire day. He then thinks of how he was given the name Hands of God because he can save even the dead. He thinks of how he used to be motivated and happy to help everyone, but over the period his life became very busy because of this and he couldn't get any rest because of his fame and how other doctors were afraid of him. He tries to cheer himself by saying he earns a lot and laughs at himself how his life is screwed. Yup, as you guessed, the famous truck Kuan is here to give him a ride to a new world. The doctor's life flashes before his eyes. Then the scene switches to a big castle which is not where the MC is born. Our MC wakes up to a voice in a modest house and is confused about how is he still alive and tries opening his eyes, and then he realizes that his hands are very small. He sees 2 people happily calling him Ray and start saying how cute he is. Our MC is shocked and tries to speak, but only mutters words like goo goo gaga. He is shocked and tries to recollect what happened. He remembers being hit by a truck and dying but is unable to understand how he survived and who these people were. In the meantime, unaware of our MC's surprise, his new parents are cuddling and playing with him. Finally, our MC realizes that he was born as their son and finds their cosplay dressing strange. In the meantime, the couple notices a scratch on their babies and the dad starts panicking about calling a priest to treat him, while the mom tells him to calm down as it's a small scratch and she can easily treat it. Ray is confused and thinks if she is planning to use an ointment for such a small scar, but he is surprised after seeing her use magic to treat him, as the dad is relieved and praises his wife that her mage abilities are still in good condition. Our MC finally realizes that he was born in a new world with magic. One night our MC wakes up thinking how it has been a while since he had slept for so long. It has been 3 months and our MC has learned a few things about this new world. Like this world is a fantasy world with swords, magic, and monsters, and the existence of monsters had made people choose a path to become strong by choosing a path of magic rather than science. He then thinks about how he might have died of exhaustion if he hadn't died in the car accident. He then decides to enjoy his new life and gets back to sleep, but he then realizes something passing through his body, which he believes to be mana, and he feels it's difficult to manipulate it. He then tries to channel mana flow by trying to manipulate it as a bloodstream. After 3 years he is able to produce a flame and is happy that his 3 years of work have finally borne some fruit. He then reads a book to understand proper control of mana and finds that mana can be gathered from the surroundings stored within the body and manipulated as needed. He realizes the limitation of the process and feels it's inefficient and tries to theorize if the mana can be gathered from surroundings and directly used. He understood it was a dangerous method, but believed that it's still worth a try and was immediately able to implement it. In the meantime, his parents were doting on how proud they felt of Ray that he studies books whenever he gets a chance, and his mom believes he will become a magician while his dad believes he must train to become a swordsman. They both start quarreling and then his mom tells his dad that she is worried that Ray only reads books while he must be going out to play with other kids. Ray's dad consoles her saying not to worry as most parents want their kids to study, but they are lucky that their son loves reading and has a potential of becoming a magician. In the meantime, Ray is trying to find a way to create a pathway for mana to pass through as perfectly as possible. The next day his mother comes into the library asking if Ray is here and he responds with a confirmation. His mother gets emotional seeing him reading again but thinks he needs to meet friends his age and play with them. She thinks because she didn't play with him Ray doesn't know what playing is, so she asks Ray if he wants to play with her. Ray is confused and thinks she wants to teach him magic when she says play and immediately agrees to play. His mom gets emotional seeing his enthusiasm to play and hugs him tightly, but Ray is confused. When she starts taking him out to play, Ray asks her why are they going out and where the books are. His mother smiles and tells him that they don't need books to play outside. After realizing this, Ray tries to escape saying he needs to study, but his mother hugs him saying how studious he is and he can take a break for one day. Looking at his mother, Ray also decides that he can skip studying for one day and steps out of the house for the first time and is mesmerized by the beauty of the new world. Looking at his amazed look, his mother asks him what he is doing and encourages him to explore the town. Our MC starts running in the grass and is amazed with this new world. He remembers how in his old life he was always under pressure and how glad he is to be born in this new world. Then he thanks his mom for getting him outside. Ray finds himself in his previous world where people are asking him to save the patient and that there is another surgery in 5 minutes. He is overwhelmed and asks someone to save him. Suddenly his mom calls out to him and he jumps out of the dream. His mother consoles him asking if he had a bad dream. He then realizes that he is reborn in another world and promises to not live his life as he did in the past. Then both Ray and his mom return home and his father asks him if he had fun today. Ray affirms that and then remembers something. He then calls his mom and asks her to teach him some magic. His mom is overjoyed and faints and after recovering happily agrees to train him. Our MC is embarrassed with her reaction and tries to hide it with a laugh. His mother decides to start teaching him immediately and summons a flame to demonstrate her fire magic. Ray is not that impressed but tries to act excited. His mom notices his lack of surprise and asks if this magic is not that impressive. She then asks Ray to sit down and explain how magic is generated by using mana and a trigger word. Ray then asks her if the mana can be transformed through different methods, which confuses his mom. He then takes fire as an example and explains how you burn mana and gather the mana to be combusted to apply friction to create a flame. So instead of these 3 steps, he asks what if it's just transformed once? His mom is surprised by the sudden advanced question and answers him that it's possible to do that if all 3 events are grouped into one and stabilized. This can be done, but it's only a theory and no one has implemented it yet. He then tries stabilizing the mana and adding more attributes to it and summons a large flame. He is amazed and starts thinking of how considering magic as atoms can help him combine mana as a compound without injecting it. On the other hand, his mother is shocked by his display of strength. When Ray realizes this, he just acts innocent and asks his mom as to what happened, and his mom says she is really proud of him and he is so cool. Later that night, Ray wakes up after hearing his parents discussing something. They are afraid of what will happen if the academy finds out about their son's genius. His mother claims that Ray is a genius that comes every 1,000 years, and if the academy finds this they will drag him to the academy at a young age. Ray, after hearing this, is tense and decides to learn magic seriously to get absolute power and avoid anyone from taking him away. Some years have passed, and Ray is now 15 years old. Ray wakes up and realizes it's morning already. He was busy researching magic at night. Then he decides to venture outside. You might be thinking, why has our MC's hair suddenly turned white? Well, it's because of his intense research on mana and the extremely fast development of mana absorption. His hair has turned pure white now. After deciding to venture outside, he picks up a sign saying, "I can fix those who are ill." He also tests out his new skills on some elements like fire, wind, and ice. He finds a suitable spot on a street and places his sign there. Feeling a bit embarrassed, he shouts out to people, saying he can heal anyone who is not feeling well and encourages people to bring anyone who is not feeling well. People start laughing at him and think he was trying to play the saint and ask him to stop teasing sick people. Ray is a bit taken aback, but he had expected something like this to happen, so he doesn't take it seriously. But even after waiting a complete day, no one comes, which disappoints our MC. When he decides to go home, a girl approaches him and asks if he can actually heal sick people no matter what kind of patient they are. Our MC starts thinking if this girl is going to be his first patient. The girl, after not getting any response from MC, asks him more aggressively if he can actually fix anyone. Our MC is pulled out of his thoughts with this and starts explaining to her that he needs to examine the person before he can be sure of it. The girl gets annoyed and tells him that she should have known that a kid like him will not be able to heal anyone, which offends our MC. Ray calls the girl shorty and tells her not to judge him just because he looks like a 15-year-old from the outside. He follows it up by saying there is not a single person in the world whom he cannot fix. The girl is taken aback but feels he looks trustworthy, even though he has the appearance of a 15-year-old. She immediately corrects herself and formally introduces herself as the single daughter of Grand Viscount Grand Von Alicia and that her name is not Shorty. Ray is surprised to see a noble and is taken aback. He tries to formally introduce himself, but the girl asks him to talk to her the way he was talking previously. She then mentions that the patient she mentioned earlier was her father. Ray is surprised after listening to Viscount Grand's name, and the girl continues explaining her father's symptoms. After listening to her, Ray believes it to be a malignant tumor and asks the girl to take him to her father as soon as possible, as this is an emergency. While following the girl, he thinks to himself how it would be too late if the tumor has already become the size of a balloon. They reach the mansion, and Ray is surprised at how huge the mansion is. The butler notices Alicia and calls to her. She immediately asks him about her father's condition, and the butler informs her that her father has passed away. This shocks the girl, and she immediately rushes toward her father's room and finds her father lying still on the bed. Her mother notices her and calls out her name. Alicia starts crying, and our MC examines the Viscount's body and claims that he can still be saved, which shocks everyone in the room. Alicia starts pleading with Ray to treat her father. Ray asks her not to worry. Others start talking among themselves, trying to find out the identity of the boy, when the butler tells them that the boy came with Alicia. The staff in the house starts questioning how an unknown commoner can enter the Viscount's estate and claim to save a dead Viscount. They believe he is a con artist who is trying to steal something from the mansion. But Alicia's mother asks them to stop, as she wants to hold on to the last bit of hope and believes Ray can bring about a miracle and save her husband. In the meantime, Ray is analyzing how the tumor has grown and even started to rot. He then creates a scalpel using his mana, which shocks everyone, and they start shouting at him, asking what he thinks he is doing. Ray is taken aback by the loud screams and explains that he is trying to fix his patient. When questioned about how he can treat someone with a blade, he gets upset and states he can just stop the treatment if they don't trust him. The captain gets angry with Ray, but Mrs. Viscount stops him and asks him to trust Ray, albeit begrudgingly. Ray also asks the captain to stop shouting and go somewhere else so that he is not disturbed. He then pokes the tumor and notices pus coming out, concluding that the skin is necrotized because of the poison. He starts by cutting off the rotten part and then opens the chest, noticing that the lungs have also started to rot. He concludes that the rotten part can be recovered as it's not huge. He removes it and then stitches up the cut area with mana. Everyone is shocked at the way our MC treats the patient and is left speechless because of his charisma and how masterfully his hands move. The butler thinks our MC's skills are like that of a god and states that he believes they will see a miracle today, and the maid also agrees with this. In the meantime, our MC uses mana to try to create an effective AED and is successfully able to revive the Viscount's heart. He then confirms to everyone that the operation was successful and the Viscount is now alive, leaving everyone looking at him with a weird look. Ray is surprised by their reaction and finds out that a bit of blood has slipped out of the Viscount's mouth because of the sudden start of circulation. The captain gets angry and starts calling him a con artist, but when Ray tries to explain the situation, he believes that Ray is making an excuse for himself. While our MC is trying to explain to the captain, Alicia also starts blaming him for her father's death. While he tries to explain to Alicia that her father is alive, the captain points a sword at him, which infuriates our MC. Not only did he not receive thanks for saving the Viscount, but they also pointed swords at him. He tells them that they have messed with the wrong person and tells them that the Viscount is saved and asks them to see it for themselves, warning them not to try to stop him. The commander gets furious and tries to attack him, but Ray uses mana to hold him and starts walking away. The commander asks other soldiers to catch him, and he binds them with magic as well. Everyone is shocked at how our MC is able to use dual magic at this age. Ray angrily walks off the mansion and reaches his house, where he finds his mother waiting for him. She starts lecturing him on how she had asked him to come early and tells him that he is grounded for 2 days. In the meantime, in the Viscount's mansion, people are shocked to see Ray's magic. While they are trying to understand what he did, the Viscount starts coughing, which surprises everyone. They finally realize that he is alive. Alicia's mother remembers how everyone treated her husband's savior and asks the commander to take responsibility and find Ray and apologize to him. The commander agrees to do so. In the meantime, the butler points out to everyone that the kid might be a saint, which shocks everyone. He explains how the Viscount had passed away and how Ray brought him back to life. Everyone agrees with this and believes Ray to be an unidentified saint. Everyone starts getting tense. In the meantime, the Viscount gets up and asks what saint they are talking about. Alicia explains how a saint saved him and how everyone blamed him for being a fake. The Viscount gets furious after listening to this and immediately demands the commander to mobilize the entire manpower and find his savior by any means necessary. In the meantime, our MC is busy reading a book and feels like someone was talking about him.